Alright, let's talk about Belgian Grand Prix. Honestly, I just thought Max is just gonna storm through like last year. Or, worst case, the McLaren boys are gonna just smash it. But guess what happened? Lewis won ultimately. Deservedly, I think he should have. Russell just pulled a blinder of a strategy. Bottas just got shafted at the end. Max, I think again, as usual, salvaged. Lando messed up his start. A lot to cover. Let's get into it. Welcome to the channel, you beautiful people. My name's Lucky. You know why you're here. We're here to chat about the sport that you and I love. We're talking Belgian Grand Prix. Let's get into it. So honestly, I just went into the race thinking that Max was on pole. Yes, the 10th place grid penalty, but he's going to right the wrongs of the Hungary Grand Prix, and then you know what? Just storm through, just like last year, right? New engine, whack it all up, get through the field. Or, like I said, maybe McLaren. That's not what happened. Right, let's go through it. Race start. I think the three key points that I kind of took away is Lewis made a crucial start with overtaking Sergio, kind of bumping wheels and showing a little bit of aggression just through Eau Rouge. Max, as usual, made a really good start. I think he made a couple of places. Lando, on the other hand, just kind of fell through. Like, he's consistently had problems at the start, right? So those are kind of relatively defining moments for the top contenders to win the race, right? So let's go through top to bottom. I think Lewis's drive was flawless. He controlled the pace, slowly eked out a gap, overtook Charles as soon as he could. I think the Mercedes was better on the day over the Ferrari, but I think that the move on the second lap or the third lap was crucial to get through and get him past, so that you can control the airflow, the tires, and so forth. Because as the kind of race progressed, you saw how difficult it was, even for Lewis at the last set of laps with Russell, right? Like, although there was about 15 laps of a tire difference, overtaking was a mess. So I think start to end, Lewis controlled the pace, pit at the right time. The team did the right thing. His closest rival ultimately was Charles, so naturally you'd want to cover for him. He built the respective gaps when the car's right, and when he's relatively comfortable from a qualifying position, you see why he's a champion, right? So I think flawless drive from a Lewis's perspective. The second, I think, Lando's start was again very, very suboptimal. Again, armchair expert, right? Me sitting here saying, oh yeah, you know what, he should improve his starts. But at that level with that car, I think the start becomes more and more crucial, and the race showed why it is crucial, right? Like, track position was vital. So I think he dropped a couple of places. So ultimately the gap between him and Verstappen just shrunk. Less and less opportunities of kind of reducing that gap to the championship leader with Max, right? So I think bad start. The strategy was more or less kind of in line with the rest of the pack. They tried to go long, but didn't really commit to an alternative strategy. So you kind of fell through. The start was bad. The strategy kind of didn't really play through. So you kind of ended up with the short end of the stick. Charles, I think maximising is kind of the summary of that drive. So I think Charles did a pretty good job, qualified well, I think the best that they could achieve with the Ferrari. The race pace was slower than the Mercs and the McLarens and the Red Bulls, so third and then later inheriting a podium was I think the best they could do. And then I think one of the biggest talking points was Russell, really, right? Like, I think as a driver and as a drive, he's underestimated, and what he did through the cockpit, exploring the option of a completely nuanced strategy, was awesome. And he executed it to perfection, right? And when you kind of see the last 3 to 4 laps, you can see how his exits are tailored so that maximizes the gap to Lewis, right? So he doesn't have this like 6/10 underneath for the final run to the third corner, so that he maintains that gap ideally. So you can't really do much in sector 2, and then that went on, and then he kind of pulled a blinder of a move, and that was awesome. So I think as a driver, that was awesome. I did feel like Merc did know what they were doing, because if you kind of go through the kind of itty bitty technical details and see what happened at Parc Ferme and so forth, you see that there was fuel left to assign the minimum weight of the car, which meant that at the point that they drained the fuel, they knew that something was off, right? So I don't question the team. I haven't worked in the team. I'm just a mere fan exploring what's happened, really, right? But I ultimately think that it was overlooked. Did Russell gain an advantage over the course of the Grand Prix? Potentially, yes. Could he have gained the weight going across the marbles if they had a cooldown lap? Maybe. It's like, to quote Max, right? If my mum had balls, my mum would be my dad, kind of thing, right? So I think a disqualification is warranted. I think Lewis is the rightful winner. It's a hard pill to swallow, but I think what Russell should take away is the fact that that was an amazing drive, and that he just pulled that off, thinking on the cockpit, keeping a 7-time world champion behind him. I think that's awesome. We have to talk about Oscar. I think he's been on an upward trend, secured another podium, another maximized podium, I think, right? Few more laps in, I think the McLaren did have the pace to potentially outrun and outshine the Mercs on the day, but I think track position was key. But I think comparing him now to Lando, especially over the course of the last 4 or 5 races, pace has been good from Silverstone, right? I think he should have won. He could have won. Hungary, amazing start. Won the race. Yes, questionable strategy and communication thoughts. But again, amazing start. Maximized on the first lap. Strategy was on the money. I think tire maintenance was awesome as well, right? Let's talk about Max. Car was as good as the other 4 cars on the grid, in the name of McLaren 1 and 2, Mercedes 1 and 2. I think the Red Bull was better than Ferrari, but I think those 3 teams are very much on the par. So what Max could have done is maximize based on that, given his grid position, and I think he did that. Again, a flawless drive, which I think might be the theme for the upcoming races, really, right? So I think it's going to be anyone's game based on maybe track temperature, maybe track characteristics, but I think there's going to be 3 teams in the mix every race. That's awesome. And I think hopefully if Ferrari can kind of figure out why the recent upgrades kind of reintroduce the porpoising issues, then we're off to a cracker of a season. Can you imagine what's going to be up for next year? That's awesome. But yeah, so I think Max, again, a maximizing drive, the pun intended. We're going to talk about his teammate Sergio. Just, I think he should have qualified first. But I think you can't debate it, right? So Spa, you could debate first or second, doesn't really make a difference. Like in terms of the starting grid, start was off, right? Let Lewis get through. After that, he just walked backwards. Strategy was aligned with the rest, but was there any sacrifice along the way to get Max a better position? Maybe, but ultimately, I think Helmut summarized it probably best after the race, really, right? Perez just collapsed. Hey, but who am I to say? He's just Christian Horner, and the cause just come out and said, oh no, Perez is going to stay with us. There's not going to be any change. So maybe there's something that I don't see, but I think just the track numbers just show that he just walked backwards, really, right? Sainz a bit under the radar, right? So I don't think he maximized it. Maybe the circuit doesn't suit his driving style, but ultimately, he still finished better than Sergio, which I think just shows, I don't know how bad of a job the Red Bull second driver is doing. Yeah. So I think Ferrari as a whole is the fourth best team, and they maximized ultimately with the two drivers. So yeah, I think Sainz might be looking for a reset and then kind of coming back to his original form after the break, really, right? But it's noticeable that the Ferrari boys kind of fluctuate in kind of peaks and troughs, really. What's the last bit, really, right? Midfield. I think Bottas was 100% on for points, and then we just pitted for the last 8 laps, which is just ridiculous. I don't get it. Which I think they should have hold on to. And I mean, it's a win or lose kind of scenario, right? It's a coin toss at that point, so you might as well just run for it. Best case, you get some points, and it would have been their first points on the board versus a puncture. So I think Bottas and Sauber kind of threw it away. Aston, I think, has found a little bit more pace lately, and they're kind of getting back to solidifying the fact that they're the top of the midfield. More to come, I think, there. Williams, again, as usual, close to points. Haas and Alpine were completely off pace, right? I think that's kind of like a quick run through of the Belgian Grand Prix. Let's just kind of very quickly look at like the standouts, right? Standout drivers, I think, were like Lewis, like I mentioned, flawless. George, blinder of a strategy and an amazing tyre whispering drive, to quote Toto. Charles, maximized, right? So I think those are the 3 standouts. Washouts, I mean, again, the words pretty harsh, but I think I'm going to put Lando there because I think he's relatively consistently underperformed with a high-performing car. Logan, again, I think qualified badly, ended badly. And Nico, for a change, this one he's on a blast, but I think maybe it's a car and a track combo as opposed to the driver problem. But I think quali was bad and race pace was also off. So I'm gonna throw Nico as a blunderer washout drive for that one. I think from a team perspective, standout teams wise, I think we have Mercedes, who got it on the money, right? Like, I don't think they thought that they're going to end up with a 1-2. Yes, strategy blinder, and maybe that was never on the cards, but ultimately they ended up with a 1 and a 2, which kind of shows that the team still got the culture in them if they have the car to pull off these really good results, right? So Mercedes was definitely a standout team. And then I go Aston and Ferrari, because I think Ferrari maximized, Aston maximized for the mid-team battle, right? So I think those are the standouts. From a washout team perspective, I think Sauber messed up the strategy completely. I'm also going to put like Mercedes in the washout, because they had two sides of the coin, really, right? Because disqualification was, I feel like, as a team that's won so much and is relatively a conservative team as well, right? From a strategy perspective, yes, they pull out like aggressive strategies, but majority of the time they're relatively conservative. So to come out with an underweight car for a disqualification when they've just won the race, I think that's a pretty bad one as well. And then Haas, I think they've consistently been either getting points or knocking on the door of the points, but this race they were just off the cliff, really. So ultimately, what do we think this race was? You guys leave a comment down below, right? Like, what do you guys think? How this race looked like ultimately? So I'm gonna give it, for the track, I think I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10, because despite the ridiculously long straights, overtaking was a problem. Love the track, but overtaking was a problem, so I think it's a 5 out of 10. Strategy, not so much. There was kind of like the odd complete blinder, right? So I think strategy did play into team's hands, and there was a point to use strategy to kind of outperform your competition. So I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Competitiveness was awesome, right? So we had technically we had five drivers potentially fighting for the win, if the fifth driver being Max, right? Like, I think if Max started from pole or second, we would have had a different story. McLaren started way ahead of Max, but couldn't steam through the field as well, right? So I think competitiveness wise, I think I genuinely give it 10 out of 10. And then fans, I think I can't give it 10 out of 10 because I haven't been to the Grand Prix. Neither have I seen all the type of fans, but you got to always commend the Spa fans, right? I think that the people who come to Spa are true F1 fans. They have the hammocks, they love looking at Rouge, they come up with the ponchos, right? So 8 out of 10. So overall, across those four criteria, I think the race rating, I'd give it, what does that come up to average wise? 7.3. Yeah, 7.3. Awesome, that's it. That's a quick wrap up of the Belgian Grand Prix. If you guys like this type of content, just smash that like button or subscribe. I'm just starting here right now, right? So more videos to come. I'm going to try and do a race review and a race prep. So relatively around 2 videos every race weekend. Thank you, beautiful people. Peace.